What up guys, welcome back. In this video we'll be going through what LACChain is. Let's just jump right in. So why should you care as a crypto investor? Not just a quant investor, but as a crypto investor in general, why should you care about LACChain? Well, the thing is that about 45% of Latin Americans do not have a bank account, and roughly 80% do not have a bank card or credit card. And why is this stat important? Well, a study was done and it was shown that for every 1% increase in the use of payment card products, it actually led to an annual increase of GDP of about $67 billion. So 1% equals $67 billion. So just imagine the rest of the Latin American population getting onto a bank account. So that's 55%. So just imagine the amount of GDP growth that the entire region can benefit from, right? The second thing is, as a crypto investor, we all want CBDCs. Well, I'm not sure if everyone wants CBDCs, but CBDCs is something that is growing, that everyone is paying attention to. And no matter if it succeeds or fails, we want to see that it's growing, because that means adoption of crypto as a whole is growing, right? And I don't want to get into like the nitty-gritty of, is CBDCs good? Is it some conspiracy sort of thing? Is it actually going to help people? Is the government spying on us? I don't want to get into all that. I'm just saying from a pure technology adoption standpoint, everyone in crypto wants to see CBDCs advance further, right? So with LACChain, the amount of focus on retail CBDCs is higher than any other country in the world. So by retail, I mean just normal everyday users who are using the currency. So this is more than any other country or region in the world. LACChain is primarily focused on retail. And compared to any other country, LACChain is double the sort of like the amount of projects which are in development stages. So out of proof of concept, out of experiments and becoming development projects or pilots, they're about double than what the average rate is for the rest of the world. So we know why banking the unbanked is good. We know why LACChain is interesting to look at. It's pretty advanced. But let's say LACChain does succeed. What does this mean for the rest of the world? Well, for the rest of the world, this is basically one massive case study for the rest of the banks in the entire world. This is the most advanced region in terms of retail CBDC. It has the most development or pilots out of every other country in the world. So you're basically, when looking at LACChain, you're basically at the forefront of CBDCs and connecting different countries in one region through blockchain. So because of that, this is one nice case study for the rest of the world. You can be damn sure every other CBDC or country is looking at LACChain. And why is this important for other countries? Why are other countries interested in this? Well, I'll give you one example or one reason. You just look at the US, for example. In the US, the biggest US export partners, so countries who are buying stuff from the US and importing it into their country, is Canada and Mexico, who are their neighbors, right? Who else is a neighbor? Well, of course, LACChain is a neighbor who Mexico is a part of already. So what we're saying is, if LACChain succeeds, we're saying that the GDP is going to increase, I don't know, by whatever billion or trillion. That's going to increase. And what does that mean for the US? Their trading partner is going to increase, right? Like the amount of stuff they can buy from America is going to increase. So that's why it's important for US-based investors, I would say. And that's just one example. So that was an extra long intro, more than usual. Of course, I'm known for my long content. But if you like what I do, hit the like and subscribe button. I see that 84.7% of you are not subscribed to my channel. This number has actually declined or improved. And it was actually 85.2% before. So all you new guys who are part of the channel, welcome aboard. Thanks very much for listening, and let's get on with the rest of the video. So what is LACChain in simple words? LACChain is simply a collection of private organizations in Latin America and the Caribbean who look to improve the financial security of all individuals in the region. LACChain was initiated by IDB Group, which is the Inter-American Development Bank, and this is the largest source of development finance in the region. They have financed over $23 billion so far, and LACChain is part of their Vision 2025, which is basically to return to the GDP levels to pre-pandemic levels. So basically, LACChain is not a blockchain. It is a consortium of organizations looking to put in place a framework or a standard and blockchain infrastructure for the entire region. So basically what this means is that each organization or each individual in the region, they can go off, create their own projects, but because they're following the LACChain framework, they all can interoperate with each other from the beginning in terms of technology and regulation. So officially, it's basically a public permissioned network, which means anyone in the public can join if they adhere to the rules, because it's a permissioned network, right? And basically they can use any blockchain protocol they like, but I think the most common ones, it seems here, is Hyperledger and a private version of Ethereum, which is Hyperledger Besu, or Quorum, which is basically private version of Ethereum. And let's take a look at who is in it. So who's in it? So there's about 120 different organizations, some small, some very, very large. They're all mostly private companies based somewhere in Latin America. Of course, the notable ones that we know already is the Quant Network. We know Consensus, which is the Ethereum sort of development company, or the development company behind Ethereum. There's Hyperledger, which is the massive foundation, part of Linux Foundation. There's Ava Labs, which is the group behind Avalanche or Avax. And then there's Celo, which is sort of this mobile app / blockchain / wallet thing, which is trying to get normal people into blockchain on a mobile app wallet, and is backed by some very large institutions. But apart from that, there are some very notable institutions in LACChain, which we're not very familiar with. And let's go through some of them here just to give you an idea. So there's three massive development banks. BNDES, which is the Brazilian National Development Bank. They fund projects around Brazil. And then same thing with IDB. IDB is a company behind LACChain. I mean, they're not a company, but they're just a regional development bank. They fund projects to improve GDP around the region. And then there's the World Bank as well, which is just the World Bank, which is sort of like a membership of different countries, and they contribute in a partnership towards the World Economic Forum, UNICEF sustainability goals, right? Those 10 massive goals that they outline. There's two large non-profit alliances to boost trade in Latin America. These are Trust of the Americas, which they've been going on for ages. I think they have a lot of pretty well-known people involved. There's Red Clara as well, which is pretty big. And then there's private banking institutions such as Citibank. Everyone knows Citibank. And then there's Iberclear, which caught my attention. Iberclear manages all the settlement of banks in Spain, which is pretty huge. There's large consultancies. There's Everest. I think we've heard of Everest before. If you know XRP, or if you know Quant. There's NTT Data, which is large consultancy. There's Tata Consultancy Services, another large one. Telefonica Tech, which is another large one. Research Labs, there's MIT, which is obviously everyone knows MIT. City Innovation Labs. There's this is interesting. There's two large digital identity companies, Evernym and IDEMIA. This sort of covers the whole basically mass scale application, right? Which is basically CBDC and digital identity. All these sort of notable partners here, they cover those two massive fields. So I'm not going to go through all these in detail. Just Google them yourselves. You'll see how big they are. I've just picked these out just so you can see, and you can go and Google them. But what are the completion dates? What are the projects involved? What are the current pilots? What's going on? Are they doing anything? So there are a range of projects and apps. There's 31 that are publicly viewable on the website. I don't know how many there are on the background. And about 60% of them are live and in usage. How much usage? I'm not sure. I need to dig a bit deeper. But we see that a lot of the projects are involved in some way within banking, asset registry, digital identity, or supply chain. So all these projects, they have different completion dates. They're all at different stages in the roadmap. But the IDB group, the group behind LACChain, has set a target of 2025 to achieve their vision. And we know that LACChain started in 2018. So basically, they should be just over halfway of their roadmap. If we just think about it more, 31 projects in 4 years, I think is pretty good. That's to say there's not any other projects and it's just 31. But we just see 31 that's live on the website. But just remember, each project needs to go through different stages, right? So research and analysis phase can take up to 6 months. Then they need to build a proof of concept, which can take about 4 months, let's say. And then once it reaches, production stage, it's just an ongoing process to make sure stakeholders are happy with it. So continuous updates, basically. So let's call it about 12 to 18 months per project to be finalized. So yeah, I would say 31 projects in 4 years. I think that's pretty good progress. So that's basically a sweeping overview of LACChain. But again, why should you care as a crypto investor? Does this mean I invest in Avalanche, Quant, Ethereum, and CeeLo? Well, let's just take a step back. So if LACChain succeeds, it will be the first case of an entire region, including multiple countries and companies, using blockchain. And looking at data from the research survey from the BIS, we can see it's the furthest ahead in terms of development and regulatory for retail CBDC. And basically we're saying, currently about 50% of Latin America is unbanked, which is roughly 333 million people. So what we're talking about here is bringing 330 million people and their money into the crypto ecosystem. Now, this is no doubt, it's going to be great for Latin America and its people, but it also places demand on those 4 crypto protocols I mentioned and any other protocol which decides to start building on LACChain. Now, why should you care if you're a quant investor specifically? Well, for quant investors, of course, this means that Overledger will be used as the middleware to connect retail CBDCs and money between countries and organizations. This will put a demand on QNT, and QNT is necessary to process any transaction, or basically all transactions on Overledger need QNT. But how come we don't see any demand or volume right now? Well, are you sure we don't? I mean, to answer this question, we really need to look deeper, perhaps for another video. But to answer this question, we'll need to know which projects are on private networks and which are on public networks. Because if it's a private permission network, we basically won't see any demand in the public markets. And then we need to look at the specific use case of each application and project, and how does it relate to the coins and tokens? How does it generate demand for the token, right? How does the use case and the application, why does it need the token? Yeah. And then what's the volume of the token consumption or demand? And then basically, once we have all these little pieces, we can work backwards to see its effect, if any, on the price action of the 4 protocols I mentioned. So what can you do right now? I mean, there's not much you can do right now going off from this content. We just know that it's vaguely going in the right direction and big organizations are involved. But this is the risk you take as an investor. It depends on your risk tolerance. If you're happy to invest based on knowing vaguely this is going in the right direction, then go ahead. But if you need the money and you can't risk it, then of course we will need to dig deeper into each application on LACChain, actually see how much of each token is being used. We need to do due diligence, right? And then we use that to prove our conviction, and then we can put some money into each protocol to invest. So that's the end of this video, guys. Thanks again for joining me. I appreciate all of you. I don't know who you are. Don't know where you're sitting. I don't know what the weather's like. I don't know what you're going through. But I really appreciate you just taking time to sit down or walk or, I don't know, gym or whatever and listen to me. I don't think people gym and listen to me, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, thanks very much, guys. And I'll see you on the next one.